Warning: if you often confuse your spit can with your old Milwaukee can, you might be an Alabama fan and find the content of this podcast about Auburn football disturbing.
This is The Eagle's Nest, a podcast about all things Auburn football. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Now, let's talk Auburn football with your host, Brett Mason and Jamie Thomas.
Hey, it's time to talk about some Auburn football. I am the resident Auburn fan around here. My name is Brett Mason, alongside my co-host and partner, Jamie Thomas. He is the Alabama fan. War Eagle, buddy.
Roll Tide, roll, baby.
Well, we're going to just jump right into the thick of things right off of the bat this week, talking about Gus Malzahn's job. But first, let me tell you, if you haven't subscribed to us, you can on iTunes and the Google Play Store and Stitcher as well. You'll just want to search for Crimson Corner and Eagle's Nest. We do two shows. We do an Alabama show and an Auburn show. That's why the name of the podcast is Crimson Corner and Eagle's Nest. You can find us in any of those locations, and you can also find us online at southeasternfootball.com. So the voices are already getting louder about Gus Malzahn's tenure with Auburn, and I'll have to admit, I'm one of those people that I have a little bit of patience and don't have much, and I think he's starting to grind on my patience a little bit. I posted a poll up on our Auburn Facebook page, which is Auburn Tigers on SEF. That stands for Southeastern Football. So if you want to go like the page, please do. You can be a part of these polls. And I ask the simple question, Jamie, Gus Malzahn, complete faith in him, or is time running out? And I have to tell you, it was very difficult finding anybody with any faith in Gus Malzahn at this point. I'll just read a couple of comments, and then we'll comment on them. Dustin Pringle says time has ran out a season ago. he got tired of waiting last year. Mark Haney says, why we got top chef talent that's being coached up. All I hear is how improved the defense is, and they should be, but what about the offense? I think that's a good point. There's little difference between firing Gus and not firing him. Those that pretend that there's talent out there, I don't know about that. We'll talk about that a little bit. Gus doesn't have a quarterback that he has confidence in is the problem, Thomas Dunham says. I guess we can talk about that. Lee Phillips, if you're going to use this in the podcast, my solution is fire Jake Jacobs, Gus Malzahn, Rhett Lashley, and put the DC as the head coach for the rest of the season. I could go on, and thanks for everybody who participated. We appreciate your comments. But, Jamie, that's the general consensus, and there's some valid points there, man. Look, we have some issues on offense, but there's definitely talent there, and I don't think that we're getting the most out of the talent on the offense. And I think it's a legitimate question. I think you have that question. You have the question is, why can the guy who's supposedly a offensive and quarterback guru, is he been able to get anything out of any kind of a quarterback when we have a few options potentially? And then why does his play calling appear to be so horrible this year? And I don't think anybody that's watched any Auburn games can disagree with the fact that the play calling has just been baffling at best.
It has. And, I've pointed out to several of the Auburn fans that are, in our office and that I talk to on a daily basis. It's really almost like two things. Gus is afraid to open up the playbook. And really he's trying, instead of trying to win, he's just trying not to lose. He's reserved. He's scared to call the big plays. I mean, really, when you go back and you look at the stats, compare offenses to offensives this past weekend, Auburn outgained Texas A&M on the ground. They had a better completion percentage from the quarterback. The yards weren't there, so obviously that means the yard per pass weren't there. It's almost like Auburn is a pretty good football team between the 20s, but once they get inside the 20, it's like Gus just loses his mind. He starts doing crazy things, or really not even inside the 20, but he gets a good drive going, and then he just he forgets how to football. To me, that kind of goes back to the Iron Bowl a few years ago in Tuscaloosa. I'm guessing it was maybe 3 years ago now. That was the real big game where Auburn kind of jumped up on Bama.
The year before the kick six.
Yeah, the year before the kick six, Auburn kind of jumped up on Bama real bad, and Bama, fought back, but Auburn had a chance to put, 21, 28 more points on the board in that game. And once they got inside the 20-yard line, Malzahn just abandoned, the offense that put them inside the 20. So, I kind of had some skepticism about his head coaching ability at that point. And then, we saw it last year, and now we've seen it this year. I don't know. I mean, the talent's there. He's a good 20-20 coach, but like I said, once it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty and put points on the board, it's like he just forgets how to.
Well, we are not. Look, if you're an Auburn fan and you support Gus Malzahn, we're not going to just beat up on Auburn the whole show and Gus Malzahn the whole show, because I'm an Auburn fan and I love my Auburn Tigers. But just a couple more comments, then we'll try to look forward. But I think it's some legitimate things to talk about. Look, Gus Malzahn's obsession with the explosive play concerns me. It's like he doesn't think you can have an offense that doesn't thrive off of explosive plays, and that bothers me when I think we have personnel on the field that could grind out touchdown runs the length of the field. It's not as flashy, and it's not as beautiful to have a 67-yard reception that nobody sees coming, and it's good to get those. But I think Petway in a couple of weeks has proven that he can kind of grind out some first downs, and he can be explosive at times. And, so can Carry On. And we've also shown that we've got some receivers that can be really solid, man. Those little passes out in the flat. This new kid that they converted over to a receiver, I'm hugely impressed with him. Not only has he shown that he can be a solid go-to guy and come up with the ball nearly every time and is good for 5 to 10 yards, but he can also turn that into 20 yards sometimes. And then who would have expected that out of him? So this whole thing about, our offense doesn't work if we don't have explosive plays. Well, damn it, then change it to do something else. You're the coach, man. If you don't have a team loaded up for explosive plays, grind it out. It's worked for Bama for the past 10 years.
Well, yeah, and I was just about to mention that. Bama doesn't have, despite the amount of points been put on the board, they're not, a great offensive football team. It's like you said, maybe what's happening is defenses and defensive coaches have kind of picked up on the fact that Gus is always looking for the big play. What Bama does, like in the first half against Ole Miss, is jet sweep right, jet sweep left, draw right, draw left, quarterback up the middle. The defense, was kind of keying in on that, and then in the second half, Bama was able to make, some bigger plays. So I don't think he does a real good job of really keeping the defense on their heels like he should. They know that he's going to try to go for the score on every play.
Well, let me give you a stat that'll bear that out. First, this game versus A&M, Jamie. First down plays, what do you think the percentage of that would break down to for run versus pass?
Oh, wow. Maybe 50-50?
No, it's 72% run.
72% run.
And, look, I don't have a huge problem with that if it was working. It kind of goes back to the old team where we couldn't really pass and we just kept running it because nobody could stop us. Look, if it's working, that's fine. But obviously it wasn't working all that well. We'll throw a few stats out and then we'll move on and talk about the defense. But look, they put up 1 yard short of 400 yards. That was good. It took them 89 plays to do it, though. They were on the field a lot. But once you look past that, there's not a lot good there. It was either predictable play calling or bizarre play calling. That's the problem. It's either really predictable.
You can't run on first down 72% of the time and expect to be successful in this league.
But I think the biggest telling stat is we had 11 straight possessions, Jamie. That's 11 possessions in a row that ended in a punt, a fumble, turnover on downs, and we got one field goal out of it. That's 11 straight possessions. That's pretty telling right there. You just can't, if the punter's sore at the end of the game, you're doing something horribly wrong. We'll move to the bright spot of the Auburn Tigers, and that's the defense. There was some issues with defense this week, which was kind of weird to me. They played pretty solid. They gave up a couple big plays over the middle. They also had some down the sideline that they gave up that I was kind of surprised to see. It's kind of like I'm not going to say it because I don't want to jinx it, but I saw shades of this traditional Auburn can't tackle defense that we've seen the past 2 years. Now, it could have just been a 1 week thing because they have been tackling really well the first few games. So it was just this game. They did have some tackling issues. But I'll tell you what, they still forced a lot of 3 and outs. They're still good at that, and they were pretty solid in the red zone too. I think they only scored 1 time in the red zone. The rest of their scores came further out. Obviously, you got to stop them from scoring no matter where they're coming at you from. But they're still pretty solid in the red zone. But I'll tell you what I liked, man. I liked Kevin Steele. When he says that they're going to fix something, I believe him. Unlike when Gus says they're going to fix something, I tend to not believe that too much, but I believe that he's going to fix it, man. He seems to me to be a guy that's going to get stuff fixed, or you're going to be, walking home or something.
A great line of head coaches and other coaches that have kind of helped him pave his way as a defensive coordinator. So yeah, you can put stock in what that man says.
Well, and I believe it, and you can see it, man. That defense is about as disciplined of a defense as I've seen at Auburn. Well, we talked about it on the last show. It's been many years since I've seen a defense that disciplined. Now, I saw this. Trey Matthews again had this bizarre decision. You got this A&M receiver down the sideline, and he's got the angle on him, and he does this weird try and fly and tackle thing when he could have just shoved him out of bounds, and he completely missed him. And it reminded me of last year when he went and tried to tackle Fournette from around the shoulders. I'm like, what's wrong with this kid? Maybe that was just a one-time mistake, but there was a few things like that baffled you a little bit. I think they're all fixable. I'll tell you what's really sad to Auburn fans, man, is when you have a defense that can limit the other team to 20 points and you can't win, because that has always been Gus Malzahn's thing. We can score lots of points, and now that we can hold other teams to 20 and you just need 21 to win, we can't come up with 3 touchdowns. As a matter of fact, if we didn't have Carson back there, kicking field goals, I'm not really sure we would ever score, hardly ever. Now, that kid's a rock. If you can get it within 50 yards, he's going to get you 3. But and honestly, looking back at some decisions they made, they should have went for 3. I think we might have actually won one of those games if they'd went for 3 more often. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Looking ahead to LSU, I'm kind of surprised, Jamie, that the line is 2 points. LSU's only a 2-point favorite. Now, I think before last week, I would have said that's okay, but I don't know about that now. But if you're a betting person, I'm not sure about the line, but I would definitely take the under on the over-under, which is 45.5, because I don't see that happening in this Auburn versus LSU.
Maybe 35 points total in this game.
Yeah, I think it's a solid bet, man, and I will be placing my money. Thank you very much. If Gus doesn't beat LSU at home, the screaming for him to go, Jamie, is going to be deafening, man.
Okay, well, let's just play, since, you've brought it up a couple of times. Is this something where Gus is, cast out during the season and maybe still takes over? If Gus goes, is Lashley going too? Or is this something, Auburn's not known really for, getting rid of coaches during the middle of the season. They just don't do that. They kind of wait till the year is over, start handling their business, with the exception of Jetgate, where there were planes flying to meet Bobby Petrino during the middle of a football game. But, how does that play out? Is Gus gone? If he loses to LSU and say maybe the next game, is he out or does he finish out the season?
That's hard to say because you kind of have to judge the people in charge up there. Once again, people are calling for Jay Jacobs' head too, so he always survives that. So I assume he still will, because the other sports programs at Auburn are doing well. It's just the football that's in the gutter right now. So
here's the other thing: does Gus get a reprieve? Is Rhett Lashley the scapegoat, and does Auburn bring in Art Briles as his next offensive coordinator? Is that a change?
I'll tell you that's something that I will just about bank my life on the fact that would not happen in 2016 because he's too close to the scandal. But I think they could, if there's some way they could push it back to 2017 so that there's some distance between him and the rape scandals, maybe. Auburn has this thing where they like to feel like family and it's a safe place, and that they really push that hard, man. And I think bringing Browse in anytime this year would really would damage that whole perception that they have.
I agree with that. It's a name that I've seen tossed around. It's a name that I've seen folks on ESPN say, that Browse will be at Auburn in one capacity or another next year, whether it be the offensive coordinator or the head coach. I've seen names like, Tom Herman. We had one guy on the board the other day mentioned Ed Orgeron.
Wow.
I can't imagine under any circumstance that Coach O would be the head coach at Auburn University.
Well, Petrino is out. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because, they gave Petrino the job one time and took it away from him, if you remember that. That was back during the Tuberville days. They hired him and then were like, oh, no, we didn't really hire you. And then he wanted the job again when Gus got it and tried really hard. I don't think they could get Petrino even if they wanted him. But I do think this Art Browse thing, with enough distance, I think that can happen. And not only that, I'll go on record as saying I'd be in favor of it. I really would. Just because I don't know who else is out there. I don't think and we had a lot of people comment on the Facebook page, what are your other options? If you let Gus go, what are your other options? I don't know. I think Lashley, the problem with getting rid of Lashley, who I don't like, by the way, he's a Gus clone. He doesn't know anything more than Gus knows. Everything he knows, he learned from Gus. So you have two people with the exact same brain. To me, that's a waste of resources. You need somebody with a different perspective on things. And so there's no, right now, they can't game plan new solutions because they both think exactly alike. I wish one of those guys was out of there. And I think the problem is if you brought in a new offensive coordinator, would Gus run him over because Gus is supposedly the offensive genius? I'll tell you this, though, Gus is eating crow, man. If you saw that press conference this week, he just, and you could tell he was kind of ashamed. He's like, yes, there has been horrible play calling going on, and I admit it. I mean, he just came out and apologized for it. My question is did you have a stroke, or did your ability to think leave you, or have you just thought that, if you bought into I have to do bizarre stuff to be a genius? What happened to good old solid straightforward stuff,
Whatever it is, he better get it corrected, or his time at Auburn is coming to an end if he does it.
Yeah, look, if LSU was a road game, I would say that Gus could get by with a loss a lot easier than he can at another home game, man, because it just... we'll get Louisiana Monroe that will win. Maybe they could get in enough shape to beat Mississippi State, possibly. But then, look, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Alabama are all going to be losses, man, and potentially some of those other games. So it's going to be a long season if something doesn't turn around. Nevertheless, take the under 45.5 and send us a tip. Help keep the podcast going. And we'll review the options for Gus Malzahn and this Auburn coaching staff next week, I guess. We'll probably have a better idea next week, so we'll talk about it then. Let me say this, though. I'm still an Auburn man, and War Eagle, and that's all there is to it, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, roll tide, brother.
The Eagles Nest is part of the Brett Mason Media Network. Online at brettmasonmedia.com. Thanks for listening to the show. If you loved it, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or the Google Play Store. And War Eagle.